This episode is brought to you by AirBnB.
Here we go.
Hey, Paji.
Hey, Sufi.
How's it going?
Great.
How's your summer?
It's good. It's hot. It's hot out here. But
We've had some hot days too.
Yeah.
We've been getting in the pool though. Although
That's
the pool,
nice.
Father-in-law pool, a little hot.
Uh-huh.
I think that, we've gotten to a place where, with kids, you don't want an ice cold pool.
Right.
I think we've maybe overheated the pool.
Well, you can just start going truly by degrees. You can
That's
just
true.
adjust that, I'm guessing.
I'm guessing too.
Yeah.
Hey, I want to share some feedback.
Oh, yeah,
about we had an equestrian episode
Yeah.
with
Boyd Martin. Yeah.
Boyd Martin, and I received a lot of nice feedback about he was a little bit outside the norm of one of our guests.
Uh-huh.
I enjoyed talking to him a great deal, so a lot of people said I really liked that one.
Yeah.
But there was
I
a
did too.
comment.
There was.
Hey Josh, this is a comment on the podcast. Hey Josh, after hearing you steer the ship back towards talking about trips countless times, I have to say I'm 25 minutes into the Boyd Martin episode, and it's still all horse talk. Great episode. Don't get me wrong, but tisk, Josh.
That's
and
fair.
I do appreciate when you get hoisted on your own petard, hoisted by your own petard.
Yeah. I think I gave Boyd a longer leash than I would normally give a guest because I felt like the public was learning something new about a new thing that most of them, for the most part, I'm guessing, weren't aware of.
I kind of agree. And I think I was also, I'm different than you because I like to let, the conversation go where it will, free flowing, the way, the way good conversations go. Whereas you're like, no, we did this. And so I wasn't upset. I enjoyed how we diverged into Horsetown.
Yeah.
You know what's another word for Horsetown?
What's that?
Philadelphia.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Yeah, something.
Yeah. Also on the Boyd episode, Mackenzie, my fiance, made a guest appearance. And what do you remember what I told Alexi, your wife, at your wedding? That one piece of advice, the last piece of advice.
You said it's about hearts?
No, it was about sort of. It was don't read the comments.
Oh, don't read the comments. Yeah.
Yeah, because people in the comments aren't going to be good. So, but Mackenzie, since she's been on, now she's like curious about the comments. Also, she was curious about the comments because just Boyd Martin, and she's a big fan. Yeah. And somebody wrote something about like, why are Josh and Mackenzie like upset that people haven't responded to save the dates? Save the dates for a wedding are just to save the date. They're not an invitation. And Mackenzie wanted me to address this because we're working on a very condensed timeline.
All right, that's very nice.
But I sort of don't really want to address it. I don't want to engage with a lot of, little things that are just easy to let go. But through this now, I've seen more comments, and I don't like looking at them that much because someone was like, I read one that said, I can't deal with Josh's negativity. And then I think about that when I'm going to sleep, and I'm like, am I that negative?
I don't think you're that negative. I think, to be honest, I'm trying to exaggerate your negativity just to make me look more positive. But I don't believe you in any way, shape, or form to be negative at all. So
I think I can cut quick and sharp.
Yeah.
I can get angry. I can be.
Sure. I would say you're not, when things aren't going your way, you maybe don't gently steer it back.
Yeah, I am just a man.
You're a wonderful, did you say I'm just a man?
I'm just a man. I'm an imperfect thing, but I'm doing my best.
Have you seen that puppet meme? It's like a British show where it's a woman. It's the end of like a kid's show and they're transitioning to something else. And the puppet, it's something along the lines, the puppet looks at her and says, "We're just men." And the woman catches her so off guard. It's one of the great, like, trying not to laughs of all time.
Oh, I've not seen it.
I'll send it to you. It's really fun times. Josh has just watched it. I mean, it's really good.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, it's great.
You know Axel. He's your nephew.
Yeah, I know. I know.
He's got a great new move. He wants to play War all the time. You know, the card game War.
Oh, yeah. Great game.
But the way Axel says War is whoa. And so every time our cards match, he goes, whoa. And I know he's saying war, but it also sounds like he's just shocked.
Yeah.
That we each had a 7.
Yeah. Or that would be what it's like when you play War with Keanu Reeves.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Simon Rex is our guest today.
Yeah, different than Simon Rich.
Yeah, we've had a lot of Simon R's. So don't get tripped up on that. Simon Rex, neither of us had met him before.
No, I mean, I feel like back in the day, back in my early Hollywood days, I feel like we probably
you would
crossed
probably have
paths.
some crossover.
Yeah.
But lovely gentleman.
Yeah.
Wonderful conversation. He's going to maybe, when it's over, you might want to buy a shipping container and live in it.
Yeah, I mean, there's part of me that wants to.
Yeah, there was part of me listening to it that thought that would be a nice way.
Yeah. He's got some wanderlust.
He does have some real wanderlust. That's a good way of describing it.
Yeah.
So, do please enjoy our new friend, our newly minted friend, Simon Rex.
Family trips with the Myers brothers. Family trips with the Myers brothers. Here we go.
Hey.
Yeah.
How's it going?
What's up? Nice to meet you guys.
Nice to meet you too. You could kind of slide right in to the Myers family, Simon, and you, I believe, are right between us in age. So we do enjoy. It's nice when we talk about family trips with people our age because it's amazing how much of it is similar.
I'm 49. I turned 50 in 4 days. And that's a very strange number to be on the precipice of 50. You start doing the math and you're like, okay, I'm past midlife crisis. I'm 50. So I'm lucky if the average age is about 75. So I'm 2/3 over if I'm lucky. And the best years are behind me physically. It's a weird age to turn is 50.
Yeah.
I hit it in December of last year, Simon, and I had a week where I thought, you know what? It's not a big deal. And then it really got me.
And then his knee started hurting.
Yeah, then everything started falling apart.
Well, yeah, what's like perfect example is I went out last night. Some friends were in town from New York. We met at the Chateau. I'm in LA right now. We met at the Chateau Marmont. I had one gin martini and I'm fighting a hangover right now. I'm not kidding. One martini and I woke up like, you gotta be kidding me. Which is almost a relief in a weird way too. It's like, okay, I'm not chasing anything anymore. Like I used to like to go out and drink and I'd want to get, whatever. Used to be a stoner, all these things. And now I'm just like, I don't need anything. So that's the good part about this age is that I don't feel like I need much. I'm okay.
I feel like you're a man after Josh's own heart because so during the pandemic, you moved Joshua Tree. Is that still home?
I live in Joshua Tree, but I rent a place in LA so I don't lose my mind in the desert. And I go back and forth. I tell people I either totally lost my mind or I totally figured it out. I go to Joshua Tree when I get annoyed in LA. And then when I get bored out there, I come back and I go back and forth. And so I just rent a downstairs from a buddy of mine in Laurel Canyon. And I have my tiny house in the desert. So I have minimal square footage, but maximum life experience. And this kind of goes into your show. The reason I moved out there was because I bought an RV. So this ties in because I love traveling so much and I live on the road. I live in hotels. I live out of a bag for most of my life. And I prefer to be traveling because I think I like novelty and I feel alive when I don't know my environment and it's sort of out of your comfort zone. So I got an RV about 7 years ago, like a Sprinter van size RV, and started traveling around California because I'm like, oh, there's so much beautiful nature. Let me tap into it more. And that was the impetus to me moving to Joshua Tree, was me going out there and saying, oh my God, this is all so close to LA. I could have all of this. And I love traveling, especially in the RV, because it's basically like you're traveling around in your own little hotel room, in your own comfortable bed with your blanket and your pillows. And you're just pulling up on these mountains and oceans and rivers. And it's kind of the best.
Yeah. I've been in a campground. I was up at Yosemite, and we had a bottle of wine and we didn't have an opener. And I saw a dude in a Sprinter van, and I was like, I bet he's got one and he knows right where it is.
Yeah.
And went over and absolutely, like, it maybe took him 5 seconds to go in, open the little drawer and pull it out and hand it to me. And yeah, you have to be organized in those situations.
You realize it's like you don't need a lot. And it's similar. I live in a shipping container out in Joshua Tree. It's basically a 450 square foot room. It's one big room. And you learn that you don't need much. And there's something sort of zen about that, and simplifying everything and not having a lot of clutter, because you don't need all the stuff. You know, it sort of starts to own you in a weird way. And it's nice to not have a lot of stuff. Right? You travel light, like traveling light's the best. I'll go to Southeast Asia for 2 months with one carry-on that I put over my head, and nobody, especially girlfriends in the past, they can't understand that. But as a dude, you don't need a lot of stuff. You could wear, I've figured out sort of how to travel, especially if you're going somewhere where it's warm, you could really travel light. But I have figured out how to travel to Indonesia or Thailand with one carry-on for 2 months. I've done it. It can be done.
I have 3 small children, so traveling light is never going to happen again. But I will say, I love my kids very much. I wouldn't trade them in for anything. The idea of a shipping container just by myself really sounds nice.
Well, it's worth it. I actually traded 3 children to get the shipping container.
Oh, that's what it goes for now?
Yeah.
So I could get one. I could get a shipping container.
You could get one. No, it's funny. I don't have any kids, so that's obviously, it's easy for me to do that. So that's another thing about turning 50 with no kids, is I start looking at my watch. I'm like, well, if I have them, I better do it soon. Hear, nowadays you hear about, and I think this has always been the case. A man could have a kid a bit older. But I'm doing the math. I'm like, well, I got to spend at least a year with the woman before I could know if I could have a child with her. I have to travel with her. That's a huge test to see if you could spend your life with somebody or have a child with them. Is what is it like when your flight is delayed? What does this girlfriend do? How does she handle that? Or vice versa. How do I handle it? Or a flat tire. There's all these things in traveling that are very revealing about yourself or your partner. That I think is a good litmus test.
Have you ever had a moment where you realized it was not going to work out with a girl based on a travel interaction?
I think it's the opposite. I was the one that was exposed traveling.
Thank you for your honesty.
Having a meltdown from a delayed flight, and it teaches a lot. That's another thing about traveling. You learn a lot about yourself. I can't remember exactly what the situation was, but I believe it was just a delayed flight, and I unraveled and sort of had a mini anxiety attack. And I remember her just looking at me like, dude, relax. It's fine. We'll get another thing. It was like holding up a mirror to my insanity about how ridiculous I was acting. But that's, look, not to sound too woo-woo, but that's traveling teaches you all this stuff. And so to answer your question, I was the one, not the girl,
Yeah.
So was this something that was baked into you at an early age? Were you taking trips when you were a kid?
So my parents divorced when I was 2, and my dad always lived in these beautiful places. He lived in Hawaii. He lived in Santa Fe. I was about to say San Diego. It's not the most beautiful, but it was a new, I grew up in San Francisco.
Pretty cool place for a kid.
It's pretty cool. I mean, it's like a beach town. So growing up in San Francisco, where it's, urban, cold city all the time, I love going to visit my dad in the summer because I'd be in Hawaii or New Mexico or San Diego. And I never thought about it, but maybe that's what planted that seed. I'm also an only child, so I'm used to sort of being alone. So it's easy for me to travel light. It's easy for me to, live out of a bag on the road and entertain myself. Like I think that's a gift and a curse in a way, because I'm okay by myself. Some people don't understand. They're like, wow, you really go out to Joshua Tree by yourself for days on end? I'm like, yeah, it's the best, and I import friends, or family, or a girlfriend. At the time when I first moved out to Joshua Tree, I had a girlfriend. It was right before the pandemic started. And it was awesome, but it was a very small, confined, again, it was a 450 square foot shipping container. So you're right on top of each other during the pandemic. And so we jumped in the RV and we did a 3-month tour all the way up to the Canada border and back. And we'll get to the Grand Canyon. I know that's a theme of your show because we could wait for that till the end. But I basically went from Joshua Tree all the way up through Northern California, Oregon, Montana, Wyoming, Utah. And that's kind of where you get into the Grand Canyon-ish area. And would do like 3-month RV trips. And I swear I felt more alive. And COVID was almost a blessing in a weird way. I hate to say that because that sounds, maybe that's not something you want to say. But for me, I was very lucky that I had the RV during that weird time because I was able to just go explore,
Yeah. I mean, there were people that did it well, that took advantage of the unique circumstance and, were fortunate to be able to have the means and, to have an RV and be able to just sort of travel light and go off. You're not the only one who did it well. And I don't think anyone should begrudge you that.
I feel like anybody who had an RV before the pandemic were like people who had bought Facebook stock at a very, they were like, I can't believe it's paying off. The RV is paying off, baby.
We have a friend who rented an RV and took a trip mid-pandemic and then brought it home and got it all cleaned up and ready to be returned. And that night it got stolen from the street because people were like, I got to get out of my house and an RV is parked out front. We're just going to go steal it. And
they became, I remember a lot of my friends, similar to when I moved to Joshua Tree, they're kind of laughing at me like, you weirdo, what are you doing? And then I got the RV and they're like, what the heck's going on with you, man? Like kind of midlife crisis shit. It was like, right after I turned 40 and a couple of years after I turned 40. And then all of a sudden, my Joshua Tree property during COVID and the RV doubled in value because everybody wanted that. And then they were like, the same people were calling me up going, how much did you get that for?
Yeah.
And I got it for the price of a Toyota Corolla. I mean, I bought this used, 2001 Volkswagen Winnebago for not that much money. And it's the best purchase I've ever had. And it's just there when I want to use it. And I actually miss going out in it. Cause I can't explain it. It's the best way to travel. There's so much beauty, everything west of the Rockies. You could you could be stuck in California for the rest of your life with your RV and not see it all. I mean, and even if you do, you go do it again and have a different experience. So
have you ever had car trouble with your RV? And when that happens, are you handy with that sort of thing?
No, I'm not. But, luckily in California, a mechanic would be not too far away. One time I was leaving Lake Tahoe and I just heard this clunk and I knew it was bad. And I'm going down, a mountain essentially. And I'm with a buddy of mine that I've known forever. He had come with me on a little trip to Tahoe and the axle had essentially started to fall out. And I had to pull into Sacramento and I just found a mechanic. And that's the thing. You sort of have to be crafty and improv and pivot and be on your toes. And I just found a mechanic and it was stuck there for 3 days. And me and my buddy were stuck in Sacramento for 3 days. And you look up restaurants near me, you find a hotel and it's an adventure and you deal with it. So you got to surrender to the elements and just it's very spiritual in a weird way, I mean, it's very first world spiritual, but it's spiritual.
It's nice that you surrender to it when you're with a buddy, but if there's a delay when you were with that girlfriend, you
lost your shit.
Yeah, she was a lot more chill than I think all the girlfriends I date now, thinking about it, I date women who are more relaxed than I am to calm me down. So in those environments or those situations, they're the calming source and I'm the kind of, neurotic one. So I think that makes sense now that I'm saying it out loud. I tend to date women who are more chill than me.
I don't know if Alexi, my wife, is chill, but she's hyper prepared and she's an incredible problem solver. So I think we both have travel stress, but my stress makes me immobile and useless, whereas her stress is like she immediately goes to work. So I definitely, I bring nothing to the partnership in travel, and I'm very lucky to have her.
Yeah, I guess so is that dating an opposite, or are you guys both? So
I think we're opposites. Wouldn't you say, Josh?
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah,
in that sense.
Do you date opposites, Josh?
No, I mean, I'm engaged now. I think we're pretty on the level. I think Mackenzie probably gets more frazzled with a flight delay or flight cancellation than I do. I give myself over to it and realize that I have no power over the plane that didn't arrive that we're supposed to be getting on. And
so Mackenzie freaks out, you calm, and Seth, you freak out, and your wife is calm.
Yeah, but I would also say there's sometimes when a flight gets canceled, I will say, well, such is life. And she'll be on the phone hustling, talking, and the next thing I know, we're on a different flight. Whereas, and I think so she won't accept defeat.
Right. Okay. That makes sense.
She's a winner.
Yeah, traveling is stressful. That's another thing. Like, traveling, as great as it is, it's also super stressful. I mean, but again, that's kind of part of the adventure of it. And I love it. And as soon as I found out that that's what this pod was about, I was like, oh, this is sort of my jam. This is like what I do.
Hey, we're going to take a quick break and hear from some of our sponsors. Family Trips is supported by AirBnB.
Hey, Sufi.
Hey, Pashi, what's up?
I had a trip recently. I went to Oslo, Norway, and Stockholm, Sweden. And one of the biggest differences between those two places is in Oslo, we were in 3 hotel rooms, and in Stockholm, we were in an apartment. And it was just so much nicer to be able to sit around with your friends at the end of the night after you'd been out, you'd had dinner, you maybe grabbed a cocktail somewhere, and then you got home and you got to sit around and just feel like you were in someone's house, feel like you were in your house maybe. And it just keeps the group together, which is what so much of travel is about. And when we were in Oslo, we were in those hotel rooms. So when we said goodnight, it was goodnight. And that was it. And I really prefer being together with my family or my friends when I'm traveling.
You like a chat zone.
I love a chat zone.
You love a chat zone, and maybe you're someone right now who's thinking about your home. You know what? There's a lot of chat areas. There's a lot of areas where I've chatted with my family, and maybe people can come here and feel like this is their home because of this wonderful space. Your home might be worth more than you think. Find out how much at airbnb.com/host. This episode of Family Trips is brought to you by Nissan.
Hey, Sufi, let's play a quick game. I'm going to say a word, and we both say the first word it makes us think of at the same time. Ready?
I am ready, Pashi.
All right, first word, cereal. Grape
Killers.
nuts. All right.
Oh, okay. We thought of different cereals. Okay.
Yeah, that's going to happen, but maybe let's try to lock in. Let's try to mind meld here.
Okay.
Next word, museum. The Louvre.
Gift shop as one word.
Okay. I said the Louvre. You said gift shop. I know we can be better at this. Let's try one more, all right?
Okay.
All right, last one. Rugged. The Nissan Pathfinder Rock Creek, where form meets function with stylish orange contrast stitching and water-repellent seat material.
Whoa. Whoa.
Wow.
I thought you were going to say me.
For rugged?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Posh, with the Nissan Pathfinder Rock Creek, you can flex your ruggedness from rocky trails and muddy paths to sandy dunes and snowy roads.
Yeah, flex your ruggedness, Soup.
I will. Stop the laughing. Featuring 18-inch beadlock style wheels and all-terrain tires, plus a tubular roof rack with up to 220 pounds of dynamic capacity for loading up your gear, the Nissan Pathfinder Rock Creek is designed to be aggressive all the way up to the front grille.
And all the while, you can stay connected while you drive with wireless Apple CarPlay, allowing you to listen to unbelievable, life-changing, mind-blowing podcasts And also family trips.
Why also never mind. So thanks again to Nissan for sponsoring this episode of Family Trips. Now, go find your path and enjoy the ride along the way. Learn more at nissanusa.com. Can I do the fast part, Posh?
Please.
Intelligent four-wheel drive cannot prevent collisions or provide enhanced traction in all conditions. Always monitor traffic and weather conditions. Cargo and load capacity limited by weight and distribution. Always secure cargo. Heavy loading of the vehicle with cargo, especially on the roof, will affect the handling and stability of the vehicle. Compatible device service and consumer activation and Nissan Connect services. Package required. Use only when safe and legal. Subject to third-party service availability. Apple CarPlay is a trademark of Apple Inc.
That's what it sounds like when you read to your kids.
Yeah, I just want to get to bed.
Here we go.
I do want to get to your childhood travel, but I have a question about the shipping container just because this is fascinating to me. Are there windows in your shipping container?
Actually, it's all windows. So one of the four sides, it's essentially a double shipping container, two side by side that are made into one big room. And the front of it is all glass. I'll send you some pictures later if you like.
Okay.
It's basically like a box in the middle of, it's off grid. Meaning that there is no infrastructure. I have a water well, I have solar power and a septic tank. And I'm about 30 minutes from Joshua Tree, and half of that into town is a dirt road. And then you get to my property and it's 5 acres, but it's surrounded by a lot more. So it feels like you're on like 50 acres with no one around as far as you could see. I mean, you couldn't be more, as a city guy, out of your comfort zone and in nature. And so, yeah, it's a tiny box, all glass on one side. And it's the architect who built it that I bought it from did a really good job. I was looking at places in Joshua Tree for a while, saw some shipping containers, and this guy did a really, really nice job. And it was surprisingly affordable, like the RV. Like, I think for I was like, I wanted to get a place, and I was looking in LA, and I was like, oh man, everything's so expensive to have a mediocre house with neighbors right next to you. I finally hit the place in my life where I was like, I just want peace and quiet. I've been living in New York, LA, San Francisco my whole life, in an urban metropolis, in the human zoo. And I was like, let me just do the total opposite. And I can't even tell you, it's like life-changing. And I just go there. It's almost just like my getaway pad to go decompress. For somebody like me who works on the road, it's really nice to go back to that after jumping into these different jobs and dealing with all of these intense personalities in the best way. But like dealing with, on a movie could be stressful, and you're just dealing with a lot of energy. And to come back to that afterwards, it's like the best thing I could have got for myself.
Last, but I have one quick question. Which direction does the window face, and are you happy with that direction?
That's a very good question. So the guy who built it did what I found out later. We humans have been doing for thousands of years, is that if you build your living space at a certain axis, it will get maximum sun in the winter and minimum sun in the summer. So it stays cooler in the winter and warmer. It stays cooler in the summer and warmer in the winter. So it's basically facing this big boulder, like the view is this half dome boulder. There's a better view if you look to the left of these mountains, but he put it at this exact spot. So, because in the high desert, it's really hot and you want to stay cooler in the summer. So truly the sun goes right over the house in the summer. And then in the winter, those big windows are facing the sun. So you get more heat in the winter. So good question.
Fantastic.
What is the longest you think you've spent in the Joshua Tree place without any guests, without leaving to go off on adventures, just solo?
About a week, which doesn't sound that long, but trust me, after 3 days by yourself,
I'm sure. I believe you.
Stuff starts to come up, and that's sort of the experience you have, especially in the desert. It's like, it's so barren and devoid of life that there's this weird experience you have in the desert where you're sort of reminded of your mortality, and you're like, I can't even explain it. It's like kind of like Jesus goes to the desert for 40 days. Like you have this experience that's very intense. And So after a few days alone out there, a lot of stuff comes up. It's like therapy. It's like self-induced therapy. It's like kind of like, you hear about these programs where you got to go out into nature by yourself with the minimal things, like you just get a tent and a jug of water. And you hear, I've never done that, but I've heard of these programs where that, you do that to grow and become a man or whatever the purpose is. And that's sort of what happens out there. But again, I have Wi-Fi and,
Oh, that was my next question. That was embarrassingly my next question. But you're talking about finding yourself and growing as a man. And I'm like, but Wi-Fi? But Wi-Fi?
You have Wi-Fi and comic books? Do you have comic books?
So like, I don't mean to sound like I'm sitting out there meditating on a rock but even those times when you turn off the TV, which is, let's just say you're not watching the TV half of the time. That's a lot of time just sitting out there in the silence. And that was the first thing. It was so silent when I first moved there. It was so quiet that I would have to put on YouTube like a sound of a city in the background to fall asleep, because my whole life I had fallen asleep to the sounds of a city,
Yeah.
And eventually over time I got to the point where I didn't need that and I could just be in the quiet, But yeah, I don't want to sound like I'm some monk. Trust me, I'm watching movies and on my phone the whole time. But when I got the house, the guy who had built it, he purposely had no Wi-Fi out there. And he said, yeah, I built this place out here to get away from it all. And I come out here on the weekends with my wife and kid, and I purposely unplug and spend time with my family. So he goes, if you need to make a phone call, if you go up on that rock up there, you could get one bar. If you have Verizon. And I got Verizon, and he was right. I went up there and you could like send a text message like 50 yards from the house. And then I was like, okay, well, if I get this place, I'm going to need to get Wi-Fi,
Yeah.
And right after I got it, I think it was when what's it called? The satellite Wi-Fi. Elon Musk satellite Wi-Fi.
Earthlink.
Yeah. Exactly. Had just come out, because it was hard to get a signal out there. Anyway, so I got the Wi-Fi. I got the satellite Wi-Fi. It's like I live on Mars. It's pretty cool.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Now, parents get divorced when you're young. When you would travel to see your dad, were they putting you on a plane by yourself?
Yeah. Wow, I never thought about it. That's another reason why I probably travel okay by myself. When I was a kid, I would get on before I remember, my mom told me she would come with me and fly me to Hawaii and go back when I was really young. And then when I was older, like 7, 8, 9, I would fly by myself.
And do you remember that being stressful, or do you remember that being
I remember it being stressful once when I flew to visit my godfather in New York by myself. And this is back in the 80s when there was smoking on an airplane. And I remember somehow I accidentally got sat in the smoking section as a kid. And these adults would come sit next to me and fire up a cigarette and smoke right next to me. I mean, I can't believe we let this happen back then. And I'm just sitting there as an 8-year-old getting secondhand smoke the whole flight, because there would be an empty seat next to me in the smoking section. And everyone would come from the back and just fire up a cigarette next to a little kid, me. The whole flight, just chain smoking. And I'm just sitting there, even as an 8-year-old, going, this can't be good.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah, I can't believe no one would have been like, hey, let's swap you out with one of the people who actually wants to smoke.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
It's also very funny that we also thought on a plane you could have a smoking section. There wouldn't. I mean, obviously it does sound to be worse to sit it next to the actual smoker, but it was getting back. The secondhand smoke was getting everywhere.
I mean, it's wild to think about that. And you still see the ashtrays on all the planes, and you're like, yeah, how did we do this? Yeah.
Although at this point, I will say, if I get on an ashtray plane, I do have a moment of like, I feel like I want to be on a newer plane.
I think that all the time too. When you walk onto an airplane, I'm not superstitious, but then I'm lying because I am superstitious, because every time I get on a plane, I rub the exterior of the plane.
I do too.
You do?
I take a single finger and I rub 2 rivets.
I rub the exterior as I go in, but it's the only thing I do that's superstitious. Or I'm lying again. When my 49ers or my Golden State Warriors play, then all of a sudden I'm like, if I stand on the left side of the TV, we seem to be doing better. I'm insane. But Yeah, I rubbed the exterior of the plane, and then if you look, there's usually a serial number right when you walk into the airplane. In the doorway, you can see what year the plane was built, and I always look to see how old the plane is because essentially you could be flying over the ocean for 12 hours in a 1969 Buick,
Yeah.
and that's scary.
Yeah.
My best memory of someone not moving during a sporting event, Josh and I are Steelers fans, and the 95 Super Bowl against the Cowboys. We went to college together. We were over to party. Things were not going well in the first half. We then went back to my apartment, and Josh lied on the couch with a terrible towel on his chest, and he didn't move. And the Steelers didn't win, but they slowly came back. And I remember he would make me get him a water because he just had to be totally still.
I get it.
Yeah,
So
I didn't want to be responsible.
You guys are Pittsburgh guys?
Our
Yeah,
dad's from Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
So we inherited it. Yeah.
So you grew up in Pittsburg?
No, we grew
No,
up in New Hampshire. So we're like Red Sox fans and Celtics
Okay.
fans, but the non-negotiable thing was the Steelers.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Would have been a lot of great years to be Patriots fans in there, but we just weren't.
We missed out.
I just did a movie with Kate Mara, and her grandfather owns the Steelers, and her dad owns the Giants.
The Giants, yeah.
Yeah, and I got to talk. I met Rooney Mara's mother, who's part of the Rooney family, which is the Steelers, and I feel like she was very excited. I was the one person to meet Rooney Mara who wanted to talk to her mom more about the Steelers.
Right. Yeah. No. She. Yeah. That's some serious NFL royalty right there.
Yeah.
It's really the best. It makes me very happy that they found each other.
I know, right? What a trip. And yeah. So I'm a hardcore 49ers fan. Growing up in San Francisco, I had Joe Montana, Jerry
Good
Rice.
times.
I mean, one of my earliest memories was winning the Super Bowl and banging pots and pans in the streets when we won. And so that was a very hard Super Bowl for me to watch last year. I'm still just recovering. That was tough.
I'm glad you still have it. That it still makes you sad.
Oh, I can't believe how many years are shaved off my life for the cortisol that courses through my body, watching my Golden State Warriors and my 49ers, who are actually winning teams most of the time. I'm so spoiled. I got great sports being from the Bay Area, and I'm still like, I don't know why I do it to myself. Every year I tell myself, why do I do this?
Yeah, I haven't renewed my Sunday ticket for this next season yet. And I don't it's the first time I've ever considered not doing it. And I just feel like I still will love the Steelers, but I don't know if I'm going to commit to every Sunday because there's some life to live on those Sundays if you leave the house. But if there are good games on,
you say that
love
now.
Football. I love
say
football.
that now, Josh, but I do that every year. I'm like, you know what? I'm not even going to tune in this year. I'm going to live my life. And then all of a sudden Sunday comes around.
Yeah. Well, you've also been sitting around in the desert for 6 days and all of a sudden it's Sunday.
Yeah,
so
that's right. And I got Wi-Fi.
Come on,
so
brother.
I'm watching the game. That's another part about getting older too, is you realize, why am I investing this much time and energy into something? But I think the reason we watch sports is because it taps into this thing that it's almost like we're such domesticated house cats in this modern day that we don't go out on the battlefield, that we're almost living through these teams as if you start to realize too, I think Seinfeld had a joke about that. He's like, you're rooting for a color. These people aren't even from your hometown. What are you doing?
yeah.
I'm very good at, if the Steelers have a 1:00 game, middle of Sunday. And like I said, I got a family. I'm not going to just disappear for 3.5 hours. And so
right.
My plan will be to watch it later. And I do a very good job.
See, I can't, I don't know how you could do that. Some friends of mine, they're like, yeah, I'm recording the game. I'll watch it later. I have to see it live. Yeah. It has to be in that moment, especially too, because, with social media, you got to put your phone away because you might be alerted of a score. So I got to watch it live.
And it's better. And I will say it's better live.
It
Because
is.
ultimately, if you're watching taped, the rest of the world knows, and it makes it less fun.
Our parents tape it and watch it on delay, and my dad sings the praises of it, and I feel like my mother just is crawling with nerves underneath, because I'm guessing when he fast forwards through commercials, sometimes he goes a little too
fast,
far.
Yeah.
And she probably would not take kindly to that, but that's for them to sort out.
What made you guys? Oh, sorry. Can I ask a quick?
No, go ahead.
Sorry,
Yeah,
this
please.
is me interviewing you guys. All right.
No, please go for it.
What made you guys want to do this travel? Why travel? Do you guys love traveling? Is it?
I think we are so close with our parents, and we sort of think, I think it goes back to what you're saying about how you find out who you are traveling. There's no shortage of podcasts where people interview interesting guests, but we wanted to try to drill down maybe on something different.
I love
Also, yeah, we could talk to you about, your process as an actor, the next thing that you have coming out. But I feel like these are probably questions you're not going to be asked anywhere else. And I think that, that you heard that what this was about and we're like, oh yeah, I can talk about that.
Yeah.
That's sort of.
I dig it. It's a good
That's what I'm
topic.
curious about.
So you have a single mom then you're growing up with, and did the two of you take trips together?
So yes, single mom. And then my mom remarried when I was about 8 to a man with 2 kids. So all of a sudden, here's your step family, right? So from like 8 to 16, I had a weekend brothers come stay with me. One was my age, one was a little bit older. And it was great. I had to share my toys, and I had instead of being an only child, it was like, oh, I got brothers on the weekend. This is cool. I got someone to throw the ball around with, and I got, someone to play video games with and watch the 49ers game with. So, I can't remember traveling too much, like just with my mom. When I did travel, because I was in school. So in the summer, I'd go visit my dad, and that was my travel as a kid, So we would obviously just do little, weekend trips in the Bay Area and visit my step family's family and an hour away and go on these little road trips and stuff like that. So that was the extent of traveling with that step family. Then they got divorced, and then I remember this moment when I moved out when I was 17. I was just ready to, leave the nest. And I remember my single mom sitting there as I was like moving out at 17, and she had been divorced from, the guy with the step family. And, I looked at her on the couch, and she looked up at me and she goes, am I going to be alone the rest of my life? And I was like, oh my God, I feel so bad leaving my sweet Jewish mom from New Jersey alone. Like, what am I doing? And then shortly after, she got back together with a guy that she dated when I was 3 years old that I didn't even remember. And so 15 years later, they got back together, and now they live happily ever after.
Oh,
that's
fantastic.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is talk about the most Jewish mother thing to say before your son departs on his own adventure.
Yep.
Putting it on you in a way.
I still carry
Yeah. It's so funny when you're like, I'll never forget. She's like, yeah, no, that was the plan.
Yeah.
That you would never forget that.
That's right.
I have a question just on the logistics of that middle, when you have step brothers who then that relationship ends. Are you connected with them at all?
One of the two I am. Yes, I stayed
great.
in touch with one of the two that I still stay in touch with. It's almost like friends in a weird way. Some friends you kind of, as you get older, you sort of, just venture off and part ways. And so I still keep in touch with one of them, and all the time we talk, every couple months we jump on the phone. I've even gone to see him in San Francisco. And I've stayed in touch with one of them. Yes.
That's fantastic. I'm glad to hear that. It's always seems so weird. I guess it's weird because you can have roommates there's people I lived with for 2 years. So obviously I was with them more than weekend brothers that I don't stay in touch with. So I don't know why I think it's so crazy to like siblings of a sort for a short period of your life.
That's right. And it's a weird thing. It's like plug and play into a family. Like, here's your new family. And at the time, you don't know for a few years,
Right.
But I think it was a good thing looking back because, again, that's the stigma that goes with being an only child is like, oh, you're an only child. But yeah, I did have to share my toys and, coexist with other kids in the house. So it wasn't, it was a good thing, I believe, for me to have step in.
So your whole summers would be with your dad?
Yes. Every summer I'd go visit my dad, Hawaii, Santa Fe, San Diego. And it was always just cool to get out of San Francisco and go. I remember learning how to swim and ride a bike in Hawaii. Obviously in San Francisco, it's not a lot of swimming pools. It's not even, you know what I mean? For California, people think, but San Francisco is like an urban metropolis. No one had a pool. I remember going to Hawaii and learning how to swim at the YMCA with the best swimmer kids in the world and being really intimidated. with these local Hawaiian kids at the YMCA, like learning how to swim. I was like the most fish out of water, literally, you could imagine. But again, looking back, I think those things are good for you as a kid to be out of your comfort zone as an adult, you know?
Yeah. And would you make how would you make friends when you would go to these new, when you drop into Santa Fe? What's is your dad still working that summer? Do you sort of figure it out? Was he remarried or?
Yes, he was remarried, and I would make friends wherever he lived. And I remember it was kind of cool because I'd go visit my dad in Hawaii, and I was really embarrassed of my name as a kid. Simon was such an easy, nerdy name to pick on, and I think everyone hates their name when they're a kid for some reason. And I remember when I go visit my dad, I was like, oh, I could be this whole other person. And I would tell everyone my name was Chris.
Yeah.
For some reason, I wanted to be Chris. And as a kid, I could just, go pretend, and I'd be in Hawaii. And I remember once coming back with some kids to my dad's house and my dad finding out I lied about my name. He's like, why would you tell me your name's Chris? Like, I don't know. Because I can? I don't know.
Didn't you want your name at some point to be John from Chips?
I was Chips. I was super into Chips, and I thought John was a better name.
Not Punch? Punch,
not Punch.
Clearly cooler name. But you would be Punch.
It's a little bit, I think Seth to John is a little bit similar to Simon to Chris. Given all the opportunities, we really showed a lack of originality.
That's right. Yeah, you just wanted a normal name.
I do want to apologize to all the Johns listening who might not know this, but Dad, the way Dad got me off it was he said it was what people call the toilet. And I don't want any part of that.
Why is that called the John? I'm fascinated with the origin of certain terms. Why is it
Go to
the
work,
John?
Josh. You got the internet.
Yeah, I'm not going to do it now. I don't want to be tip-tapping away here, but we'll
figure it out for our listeners. But
we sure will.
I also, did you appreciate? Well, I guess Rex wasn't your last name, right? I was going to say
that's my middle name. So
gotcha.
Rex is my legal middle name, and my first agent ever was like, what's your middle name? And I said, Rex. And he goes, oh, Simon Rex. That has a real ring to it. That sounds like it
really does.
A snazzy name. So it's not a fake name. It's just my middle name.
It's real, I mean, it's interesting that you had that available as a young person to use. Because if your dad heard you all of a sudden you were using Rex, he wouldn't have been offended, right?
That's
he gave you that one as well.
Yeah,
and that your first agent was from the 1950s saying it was a snazzy name.
Yeah, that's right. Maybe snazzy wasn't the word. I think that's just me being 50 years old.
I don't know.
5 days.
You never know.
But he was right. And looking back, it does have a certain ring to it, and it sounds fake, but it is my name.
It's great.
Yeah.
I think and then once you used it, that was it, right? And did you also know this is good. I like this now. I like being Simon Rex.
Yeah, I mean, so essentially what had happened was I moved to New York. I was doing I know it's hard to believe, but I was doing modeling because I'm 6'2" and I'm skinny and the clothes hang off me like a hanger. And I was doing runway shows in Paris, Milan, and New York. And instead of going to college, I moved off to Europe at 19 and I'd be in New York a lot. And I remember my modeling agent at the time was like, hey, there was a male supermodel in the 90s named Marcus Schenkenberg. He was the biggest male model in the world. Actually, Zoolander the movie was sort of based off of him and another male model. And it was just sort of a funny topic, like a male supermodel. Like, that's funny in the 90s. And that's why Ben Stiller did that, I believe. And so he was with the same agency I was. And so he was going to be a guest on MTV with Kennedy, who was a VJ at the time. And she was going to interview him like, what's it like being a male supermodel? But he was too busy to do the rehearsal. So my agent said, we should send Simon to the rehearsal because I bet you he'll get a job out of this. And they were right. Looking back, they were smart. So I went to the rehearsal. And I was zinging and zanging with Kennedy and the producers were there and I was just a fill-in. And they were like, do you want a job as a VJ? And I said, I have no journalism experience, no music experience, and I've never been on TV. And they said, perfect, you got the job. And next thing you know, I'm live with the red light on MTV interviewing Madonna and, all these big celebrities live on MTV, just thrown into that. And Simon Rex was like the perfect VJ name. So
It really
overnight,
was.
you know what I mean? It was just like in the 90s, and I'm interviewing Tupac and I'm interviewing all these legends, and I was kind of thrown into it. And Gus Van Sant had seen me on MTV, and he's like, I want to audition this guy for Good Will Hunting. So I went in for an audition. He called MTV somehow through, his agent or whatever. And I went in to read with Matt Damon. And because I had no aspirations of being an actor, I didn't even have aspirations of being a VJ. It just kind of happened. And I'm sitting there reading the lines with Matt Damon like a robot because I had never acted before. And Gus Van Sant stopped me. He goes, Simon, I have to stop you. This is the worst audition I've ever seen. And Matt Damon starts laughing and looks at the ground. And I was like traumatized. I'm like, I know, I've never done this. He goes, go to acting school. You're not ready for this movie, but you have something. You're just not ready yet. So I started going to acting school in New York and doing these kind of improv classes and these like serious theater classes. And of course, they hated me in the theater classes because I was the guy on MTV who was getting jobs, but they're like struggling actors off Broadway. And I was like, what are we doing here? And something about that got me work because I didn't know what I was doing, I just kind of got thrown into it. And this was 25 years ago. I started taking acting lessons, and here we are.
Yeah. Now, have you ever heard of, do you think Gus Van Sant remembers that?
So, yeah, because I reached out to him recently. I got his phone number. I hit him up. I'm like, hey, man, do you remember me? Blah, blah, blah. He goes, yeah, Simon, of course I do. Red Rocket was great. And I remember, and I was like, thank you so much. Without you, I wouldn't be here right now. You were the reason why this all happened. And he's like, oh, that's very sweet of you to say. I don't know if that's true. I'm like, no, it's absolutely true. You told me to go to acting school. And I don't know if he remembered it that way, but that's what happened. And so, yeah, I 25 years later, I circled back with him.
That's so nice. Did you ask in the last 25 years, have you hopefully seen a worse audition than mine?
No.
Or am I still number one?
I didn't bring that up. It was just a quick text conversation. So I just thanked him, and it was just kind of funny that full circle,
That's really great.
Now we're going to take a quick break to hear from one of our sponsors.
Support comes from DeleteMe. Hey, Pashi, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm a little bit better now, thanks to DeleteMe. Pashi, I was very taken aback when I got my DeleteMe account to find out exactly how much of my personal data was out there on the internet for everyone to see. And you know who wants that information, Posh?
Bad people.
Data brokers.
Yeah.
They compile it and then they sell it. Do you think they sell it to the best people that they can trust?
I doubt it.
They sell it to the highest bidders. They don't look into what their intentions are for your valuable information. And so I got a report from DeleteMe that let me know exactly how much of my information was out there. And I was taken aback. And I'm not easily taken aback, Posh.
You're not.
And thank God, because the last thing I want to do is wake up, find out my bank account has been emptied, or get overdue notices for credit cards I never applied for, or scammers. Once scammers get my information, game over, because I am easily scammed.
Yeah. I mean, just on a real personal front, I've got my DeleteMe report open right now. I had
lay it on us.
1,599 total listings reviewed. There were 83 data brokers who had my personal info. 213 total listings have been removed. 19 and a half hours of time saved searching for this stuff. 13 and a half hours time saved removing. And the websites that have your stuff, it's like nonsense websites. And they're not doing anything good. BinVerified.com, Check Secrets, Cluster Maps, Corporate Wiki, DOBSearch.com, DexKnows. Who are these people? Why do they have my stuff?
Yeah, and by the way, Cluster Maps, you don't even ask to be a sponsor for family trips.
Yeah, hard pass.
Posh, on that report, does it have your social security number? What's that?
Well, I'm not going to tell you what my social security number is.
See?
Yeah.
Because thanks to DeleteMe, Posh is not easily scammed.
Yeah,
The other thing is this isn't just a one-time service. DeleteMe is always working for you, constantly monitoring and removing the personal information you don't want on the internet. To put it simply, they're doing the hard work of wiping you and your family's personal information off the web, because your personal profile is your personal. There's a reason personal is in the name. It belongs to you. It's not theirs to sell.
Take control of your data and keep your private life private by signing up for DeleteMe. Now at a special discount for our listeners. Today, get 20% off your DeleteMe plan when you go to joindeleteme.com/trips and use promo code TRIPS at checkout. The only way to get 20% off is to go to joindeleteme.com/trips and enter code TRIPS at checkout. JOINDELETEME.com/trips.
Here we go.
Now, the modeling life, I think, to all people sounds glamorous. I'm guessing it's way less glamorous. But were those? I mean, you're in fascinating places: Milan, New York, Paris. Were those great years, or were they sort of stressful, hardworking years?
Again, now that we're talking about it, it feeds into this narrative of the travel show, because and this is before the internet, and this is before, this is back when I remember being like in Europe, writing letters, and waiting for the mail to come, to a girl I was dating. And when you show up in Milan as a teenager and you're just handed a map and you got to figure out the metro system in a foreign country in a language you don't understand, you got to figure it out. You got to go. There's no Google Translate. There's no Google Maps. You got to go walk in and I feel like getting thrown into that gave me the travel bug, because nowadays it's so easy to travel. I'll be in another country, Google translating in Southeast Asia in the back of a taxi, having a conversation with them. There's on Google Maps, So back then you didn't have any of that. So it was sort of such an adventure. You're like in this, and you're just walking around Milan, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, look, there's the Museum Rodin. And you're looking at the Thinker, and you just happen to, oh no, that was in Paris. But stuff like that, like you're just, just get lost. You truly just get lost. And I purposely do that now when I travel, is I like to leave my phone in the hotel and go wander around a village in Indonesia and just get lost and figure it out, because I miss those days of that feeling of being completely like, what the fuck,
Yeah.
It's really great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would imagine you have to figure it out, because I especially, it doesn't strike me that the people in Italian fashion are patient with an American who's like, man, I just couldn't figure it out.
No, not at all. But it was fun. Yeah, it was fun. I mean, think about it. Instead of going to college, I was living in model apartments with these beautiful girls and their parties, and everyone's having these, be like
sounds
different.
Bad.
It was insane. It was like, truly living in a model apartment with all these beautiful people, and, oh, let's all make dinner. I'll go get the pasta. You get the wine. And you're doing kind of like what you would be doing in college in a model's apartment, meeting these interesting people. And it was fun. Yeah, it was actually, I think those days, also because of my age, but being in your early 20s on MTV and being in Europe was the funnest time of my life. It really was. Yeah.
I mean, the shipping container sounds great. Don't get me wrong. But this making dinner with models thing, I wanted to.
Yeah, it was wild. So yeah, looking back as we're talking about it, I'm realizing all these things sort of as a kid, and that feed into why I like to travel, because it's sort of just my life. I'm used to it, right?
Yeah. And that's where you find the adventures. It's
that's
great.
Right. Yep.
Do you have any memories of with either of your parents sort of like going somewhere with just the idea of like, we're taking a vacation, we're going to Disney, or we're going to, stay in a hotel or resort, we're going somewhere where we don't live, and where it wasn't just going to stay with your father for the summer, sort of people coming to you? Like, did you have any camping trips or?
Yeah. One time I went to visit my dad in San Diego, and he's like, we're going to rent an RV. And he rented an RV. Me, him, and his wife went. I don't remember where we went. We just went out in California, traveling around in an RV and camping. I don't know if that planted the seed in the back of my head of wanting to get an RV. I think I got that idea from looking at a buddy of mine more recently living in his van life, going, wow, that's pretty cool. And that's why I did it. But maybe that planted a seed, because I remember being a cool adventure. I also remember going to Hawaii once, years after my dad left Hawaii. Me and my mom went to Hawaii and going on the road to Hana in Maui.
Oh, yeah, I've done that.
Yeah. And just going on this twisty road, and the destination was Hana. And it's like a famous, drive, I guess. And I remember that one being really cool and like just, being lost in a jungle. And I feel like you just feel the most alive when you're traveling like that. I get bored when I'm in one place too long. So as we're talking about all these stories, it makes sense why as an adult, I do all of these things because I think it was planted in my head at a young age.
Did you stay out in Hana or did you do the drive and then
I don't
turn
really
it around
remember.
and
I
come
think
back?
I think it was just like from the hotel, it's like the island's not that big and the road was probably 4 hours. And then you go there and you come back. And I remember there being like a black sand beach or something and being like, oh, that's cool. And you check out the destination. But it's not to sound cliche, but it's not the destination. It's the road, right?
Right.
But it really is. It's always the ride to the party with your friends is more fun than the party, right? You get there and you're like, well, I had more fun hanging out at the house talking about the party with you guys and driving. And then we get here and like, wah, wah, wah. That's quite often it's the journey. And I know that sounds like a bumper sticker, but the bumper stickers are often right.
Yeah. We dismiss them too often, but bumper stickers are pretty much on the money.
Our parents did the road to Hana and just did an out and back. And my fiance and I went out and we stayed there for like 4 nights. And it feels like something. It's a beautiful, twisty-turny drive, but I think it's better broken up, I will say, to anyone who's going out there. Like, if you just turn around, then you have a 4-hour twisty-turny drive rather than 2, settle, enjoy, and then come back the other way.
And I would say the worst outcome, real quick, is to go up and back with our dad driving.
Is he a bad driver?
No, it's just twisty and turny, and Dad does not.
I think they did like they jumped in a bus or like an open air van or something. I don't think they were driving, but don't hold me to that.
To go backwards a second, another bumper sticker thing that's true is I'll go on a hike. Like I live in Laurel Canyon here in LA, and 5 minutes away, there's these beautiful hikes that are just like you basically in this forest and it looks like you're in Oregon or something. It's just so great to tap into all that in LA. That's like the best part of living in LA is that you have the mountains, the ocean, these hikes. Cause LA to me isn't the best city. It's not even really a city. It's like a town, but there's all this great nature and I go on these hikes and I got to remind myself when I'm on the hike, I find myself like briskly walking through this nature. I'm like, just stop for a second and look around and appreciate the view and stop just like plowing through it. And it's kind of the same thing. Like sometimes you got to just stop and look around. And when I do, I'm like, oh my God, this is so nice, and it's kind of a smaller version of the traveling thing is it's not just getting there. You got to enjoy the whole thing, I sound I sound like such a dork.
You're a real Simon.
Man.
I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, I'm Chris. Just call me Chris.
No, too late for that. Hey, I do want to, we both seen the trailer for your movie, Blink Twice, which looks fantastic. We also like spooky, scary stuff. But this is also beautiful island location. Seems like a little bit like people who are lucky enough to work on White Lotus.
It was very similar. Yeah, it was kind of like basically shot in the middle of the jungle in Mexico. It takes place on an island, and we shot it at this resort that they gave to us, the cast and the crew, to shoot at in the middle of the Yucatan Peninsula, which was so awesome. It's a place I'd never been before. It's kind of in the jungle of Mexico, and there's these cenotes, which are these I guess that's where the meteor hit that made the dinosaurs extinct. And there's all these beautiful swim holes and little villages we'd go to on the weekends. And it was, we had so much fun shooting it. Zoe Kravitz, who directed it and wrote it, who's not in the movie. Everybody thinks she's in the movie when they hear about it. She just didn't want to be on camera. And we had such a great time. And Channing Tatum, who's the lead of the movie, they were so great. Sometimes you show up on these movies and you're a little I don't know if nervous is the word, but you're like, oh God, I hope these actors are cool. These like A-list actors that, are super famous. And then I've been so lucky lately. I get on these jobs and I'm working with these amazing actors and they're so down to earth and sweet. And I go into it with this kind of not pessimistic attitude, but I think I've just had bad experiences in the past with actors where most actors kind of annoy me. And I still kind of have imposter syndrome when I'm around actors because I don't feel like I'm one of them. Just like when I was in acting school back in New York, I'm like, I don't know if I'm one of you guys. I don't feel like I'm in this frat. But I get on these jobs and I've been so lucky because they're so sweet and they're just normal people. And it's so refreshing when you're like, with someone like Channing Tatum, and he's just one of the boys,
Yeah,
And
it's really sweet. It's also, I think every smart actor who is in Channing's position knows that life is so much better for them too if you get to be part of a team, part of a unit, and everybody relaxes if you're chill, and that's really nice to hear.
Well, I imagine that's what it's like for you on your show, right? I mean, you have all these big names coming in, and you're sort of like, it's your world and they're coming into
Yes.
it. And yeah, absolutely.
You can't believe they're giving you their time. And so, ultimately just try to make it feel chill and comfortable and hope you get the best out of it. So
Yeah, exactly. And so anyway, to your question about this movie, it feels like it's going to be one of those summer buzzy movies like a Saltburn or something. It's a suspenseful thriller. And I play Cody, who's Channing's character's best friend and personal chef. He plays sort of a tech giant who has this private island, and we go there with these beautiful women, and trouble ensues. And
Yes.
I don't want to give too much away, but it all of a sudden some twists and turns happen, and it's intense.
I just recommend everybody check out the Blink Twice trailer because my appetite is whetted, as
Yes.
I like to say.
Yeah, I think you'll dig it. It's a fun movie. And I feel like we shot this 2 years ago. That big strike happened for 7 months. It kind of
course.
backed everything up. So this is already 2 years ago. And it's kind of hard to even remember. It seems like a lifetime ago shooting it. But it's Gina Davis is in the movie, and me and her hit it off, and we would just be writing bad dad jokes in the middle of the jungle. And to this day, me and her still text each other. Like, I'll just think of bad dad jokes and send them to her. And so you form these friendships. It's like going to summer camp, again, tying into the theme of your show, because I'm used to just traveling and showing up in some random country or place. I'm just used to it. So when I show up and plug and play into a new group of people, I feel like I'm built for this in a weird way, because my whole life I've done this, right? It's not weird for me to do that. You're just going to summer camp for a month or two on these movies and forming these deep bonds. You're with all these people for 12 hours a day, essentially trauma bonding, because it is stressful sometimes shooting movies. And you make friends and you keep in touch with some of them. And, it becomes like a network, and you start, making relationships and then working with some of them again as you go on. It's really cool.
That's fantastic. And this has been fantastic. Simon, I'm so happy to finally get a chance to meet. I hope the next time's in person. And
Me too.
We're gonna leave you with the questions that Josh is gonna kick off.
Okay, let's do it.
All right. You can only pick one of these. Is your ideal vacation relaxing, adventurous, or educational?
God, that's a good question. At this point right now, I want relaxing. I could get educational wherever. I think at this point, I want to go chill out somewhere, which is ironic because traveling could be so stressful. And quite often when you go somewhere to relax, it ends up not being relaxing. So if I could get a relaxing vacation, I'll take that one.
Excellent. What is your favorite means of transportation? Train, plane, automobile, boat, bike, Sprinter van?
Sprinter van.
There you go.
Absolutely. Not even a question. Next question.
If you could take a vacation with any family, alive or dead, real or fictional, other than your own family, what family would you like to take a vacation with?
Oh, that's a really good question. That's a good question. Who would I want to travel with? What family? Not the Kennedys.
Somebody just said the Kennedys.
Yeah.
Well, I would just be afraid of some disaster.
Yeah, no, I
yeah.
think you're
Fair,
I mean,
fair
I'm
enough.
I'm team you on this one. So.
Yeah, I'm gonna say. How about the Shakespeare family?
Great.
All right.
Yeah, why not? I want to go
Yeah.
back, and I want to go learn from them. So I guess it would be that would be the learning vacation.
It's really funny that you said the Shakespeare family, because it's funny to think like back in the day someone said, "Oh, the Shakespeares are coming up."
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
It's one of those names that seems crazy.
Yeah,
Like,
Bill's
Yeah, they're
coming
coming
over?
over.
Did Williams?
Bill's coming over.
Did
He's-
Williams say like, Williams' friends be like, oh, is Mr. and Mrs. Shakespeare coming over for dinner? Did that happen?
Yeah. Well, if you could take a trip with them and then you could report back. If you had to be stranded on a desert island with one member of your family, who would it be?
Stranded on a desert island with any member of my family, who would it be? I would say I'm going to just be sweet and say my mom, because then I get to spend some time with my mom. How long are we stranded though?
Right. That's a good
Well,
question. too.
yeah, the TBD.
We don't know. I
you
do
don't
know that if you had chosen someone else on your way out the door, she would have said, so I guess I never get to come to the island.
In the off chance my mom hears this, I'm just
Right.
playing it smart. Don't tell it. You got to edit this part out.
And San Francisco is your hometown, would you
Yeah.
say?
Yeah.
Would you recommend San Francisco as a vacation destination?
Absolutely not.
No, huh?
Not anymore. Not these days. I mean, well, look, that's kind of feeding into this narrative that San Francisco's become this like shithole, which it kind of has been. If you did go there, I would have to tell you where to go. It's kind of similar to when I see people coming to LA and you see this like family from Switzerland walking around Hollywood Boulevard and you're like, oh my God, they must just think this is the worst. You know, it's just like there's certain places in San Francisco that you need to avoid to go have a good time. So if I was to tell them to go there, I would have to sit down with them and figure it out, because it could get tricky and you could go there and be like, this is apocalyptic, you know?
Right. Yeah.
So,
But yeah, plenty of great places as well.
oh, plenty of
And,
great places.
Yeah.
So I'll change my answer to yes, I just need to sit down with you and have a talk.
Okay, great.
And Seth has our final questions, which we know the answer to the first one. But
Yeah, I think I'm very excited. You're prepared. Grand
Grand
Canyon, have you been? Is it worth it?
So I didn't get into the details. So really, when I went on that RV trip during COVID with the ex-girlfriend, we came down through Bryce Canyon and into Mount Zion National Park, which is, I believe, if you look at a map, on like the west side of the canyon. So I haven't gone into like the Grand Canyon and like checked it out. So I just kind of got a taste of it. And so I actually want to go explore it more, because I really haven't gotten into the nooks and crannies of it.
So wait, when you say you've been to Bryce Canyon and then
Yeah.
you say I haven't been to the canyon, so you haven't been to the Grand Canyon.
So, I'm confused, because I was actually on the way here, I looked at a map to be like, is Bryce Canyon the Grand Canyon? And it looks like, if you look at a map, it's right on the far left of it, and it kind of all bleeds into the same. So I think I got a taste of it in Bryce Canyon and Mount Zion, or Zion, not Mount Zion, Zion National Park. So those two places to me were some of the most beautiful places I've ever seen in my life. It blew me away. So, and I've also been in Arizona to like, I think near the Grand Canyon. Even when you're in Vegas, if you go a few hours, like 3 hours, Lake Mead is almost on the west side of the Grand Canyon. So I've sort of tickled the left side of it, and I need to get in there more. And I absolutely would recommend it, because what I've seen is stunning. And I want to go explore it more.
I do think you're going to like it. Based on everything you've told us, I think you're going to be perfect.
Why the affinity for Grand Canyon? What?
Well, because I want to go, and I've sort of been, but I haven't been into it. And Seth doesn't have any interest in going. And it's a quintessential vacation destination for
It's also
Americana
a
classic.
quintessential example of how Josh and I are different.
Yeah.
You guys got to document this and make a funny little thing about it, because it would be funny to see the both of you there fighting on the road. And bring your dad. Yes. So to answer your question, I need to go explore it more, but I do recommend it based on the left side of it.
Okay, great.
All right.
All right.
Very good.
Simon, this has been a delight.
Thank you,
Thank you
guys.
so much.
Thank you, Simon.
Thank you,
And-
guys. I hope I didn't exhaust you talking about myself, but I guess that's the point of the show.
It sure is.
It absolutely is. And this has just been wonderful. Thank you so much, my friend.
Thank both of you guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks, pal.
Family trips with the Myers brothers. Family trips with the Myers brothers. Here we go.
Thanks again to Nissan for sponsoring this episode. Learn more at nissanusa.com.